this day, but there's definitely a thing I think that happens. Like when you know in your core that you have to do something, that you're supposed to be doing something, like the world does not help you at all. That you don't get an ounce of help. But whenever you start doing this thing and you're out in the world, just putting it out there, dude, the world comes around you, just like the British Army guys coming to save us, man. For some reason or another, when you start doing what you're meant to do, what you know in your core you're supposed to do, the world comes around you. It's wild. We had a lot of those experiences where we should not have made it out alive. We shouldn't have been able to keep on going, but we did. And I can't explain them when we're in those really bad situations. You just have to say good and embrace it. You know, your boat's on fire. Great. I was hoping my boat would catch on fire. You know, that's awesome. Yeah, we wanted to share that with people, especially if my buddies getting out, that there's a reason to live again, that this world isn't just death and it's disgusting dark. You know, it's actually, there's beautiful parts in this world. You just have to go there. You have to go find it. It's not going to be in your couch in your living room. And that's given me a reason to live. That's what we do now that the film's done, is we bring veterans and show them those experiences and show them that this world is worth living in again. We chose sailing to do that because, as you know, sailing, it makes you feel different, dude. It makes you feel a part of the world.
You are watching or listening to the Sail the Stars podcast. We are a movement that is using visionary art and cryptocurrency to crowdfund a fleet of sailing vessels dedicated to sovereignty, freedom, and peace on the planet. Our mission is to challenge ourselves to sail around the world and pick up amazing people along the way to co-create epic art and content that inspires people to follow their dreams and to have courage during these transformational times on the planet. We've invited artists from all over the world to co-create this vision through spectacular art. And using the art, we're crowdfunding our first boat and connecting with people with vision, messages, ideas, and solutions to build the new earth and celebrate life together as we recognize that the spell is broken. It is safe to breathe. The truth is prevailing all around the world. That all beings have the right to ask for health, happiness, love, and open path towards their dreams. And that the greatest renaissance of consciousness is upon us, as men and women all around the world are uniting to recognize sovereignty, freedom, love, and that peace is the true power. Hey guys, welcome to the Sail the Stars podcast. In this episode, I have the honor and privilege of interviewing Taylor Grieger from Hell or High Seas. Hell or High Seas is an incredible documentary, a true story, Taylor's story, and the story of his friends, as they essentially crossed Cape Horn on a tiny little sailboat for a cause, to raise awareness for PTSD. Now, Taylor's story is remarkable. He was a rescue swimmer in the US Navy, and after leaving the US Navy and becoming a vet, he was suffering from PTSD. This is a problem that very little people know about, but it's a big problem, as actually more people get PTSD and commit suicide after leaving the Army and the Navy than people who actually see action. And this is a case where Taylor actually was suffering from PTSD and he decided to take his own life because he couldn't cope with it anymore. He went out onto a beach one night with a Glock in his hand, a gun, pulled it to his head, and he pulled the trigger. And what happened after that was the rest of the story. Of course, he survived. In fact, the gun didn't actually go off. He had a second chance at life. And he decided to raise awareness for this issue and to heal himself and change his whole entire life through sailing, through adventure therapy. So without any further ado, I'm going to cut to the interview with Taylor. Just to give you a little bit of a heads up, the first 10 minutes of this interview, we had some video problems, so you couldn't really see my face, but we fixed that. But it's a phenomenal interview and great content. Hope you enjoy it.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. That's cool. It's a great intro.
Yeah, I try not to spoil too many of the stuff coming up, but let's just start with the beginning. Here you are, you're coming back from the Navy, being a rescue swimmer, and this whole story of yours encompasses around PTSD and dealing with trauma. And this is something that not a lot of people, are aware of. We tend to think of people going out to service, going out to the Army, to the Navy. Oh, like if you don't see action, if you're not in a battle or something, you just did, you had an easy time, but it's actually not the case. In fact, more people commit, at least correct me if I'm wrong, as much, if not more people commit suicide who haven't seen action, who haven't actually been in traumatic situations, as we would normally label them. And there you were.
Yep.
What was that like?
That's scary, man. When I first got out of the Navy, the first couple of months were awesome. It was great. I was a free man again. I could go wherever I wanted, do whatever I wanted, not have to answer to anybody. The world was mine, that's what it was like. It was incredible. And then for me, is like the beginning of the third month, fourth month. I think everything that we went through over the years started kind of catching up to me. And the best way I can kind of describe it is when you're operating overseas, you're on these 10-month, 11-month deployments. Whatever happens to you, bad, anything in your family or in your environment, you almost died the night before, right? Helicopter almost crashed, anything at all. You have to fly the next day. You have to do a job. If you're looking for a body in the water, or if you're delivering supplies to someone, or if you're fast roping dudes into the jungle, you got to operate at 100%. You have to be there. So whatever happened the day before is going on in your life, you have to compartmentalize it. You have to push it away. So if you push everything negative that happens to you away for years on end, like this was 6 years, and it's got to catch up with you sometime. Your body is going to need time to process that. And that started happening to me about my third month when I got back. I just started having, nightmares. And the scariest thing that happened to me was my body would run away from me. So when you operate on that kind of tempo, it's constant adrenaline and cortisol running through your body, trying to stay alive, right? And so for no reason at all, adrenaline would just start running through my body. I wouldn't be doing anything. My body would just run away and I couldn't control it. And that terrified me. I wasn't in control of myself. And it'd take a couple hours to kind of calm down, to figure out, I don't need to go to the hospital. This is fine. And then whenever you live like that for months by yourself, and you have these memories, and I don't know, the world's pretty dark. It's a pretty dark place, and pretty lonely. I didn't want to live like that anymore. I don't want to go on living in this world like that. Seeing that every single day is terrible way to live. So yeah, I did try to commit suicide, failed.
Let's talk
when that
for a second, Mike. So you went out on the beach. I'm just telling a story I got from the movie. You had a Glock in your hand, 9mm pistol. You pulled it to your head. You pulled the trigger. Like, people need to know that you actually pulled the trigger. And then what happened?
Yeah, we shell that out in the film. You have to watch Hell or High Seas to see that part. And that's kind of cowardice on my part. Before we shot the film, I hadn't even talked about it with my family. I was just scared, what they would think. And so, the underlying kind of thing for me personally with the film was like, I could talk about this once and not have to talk about it again. So it's still really embarrassing time of my life, but yeah, that round didn't go off. And when that happened, I just cried, man. Cried for a long time. And I thought about all my buddies when they got out, them feeling that alone and feeling lonely. There wasn't any other way to live. Just broke my heart, man. And I called Steven. We talked about what I was going through. And Steven's the guy that was in the documentary as well and went with me around Cape Horn. And he'd been working on a PhD and writing a book about veterans returning back to civilian society and what that's like and what they go through. And I was like, dude, have you seen this at all in any of these hundreds of interviews you've done with veterans? And he's like, yeah, every single person says the exact same thing. Why didn't I know this? Why did I know that this is a normal thing? And that was part of our problem. And he was the first person to also explain to me that, like, whenever you're in that amount of stress and in that environment where you're living in fight or flight every day, your body changes on a physiological level. And that statement right there was why we made the film. When we talk about how your brain actually changes, your hippocampus, your frontal cortex will shrink due to the amount of cortisol and adrenaline running in your body. And whenever he told me that, I was like, dude, if you can change your mind physically, physical size of your brain, you can change it with that much stress. You got to be able to reverse it. You got to counteract it. What happens if you're living in adrenaline and endorphins all the time? And he's like, yeah, that's exactly what happens. So there's studies out there right now. I mean, for a while, the biggest one I could talk about is in 2007 when they did this study. So the brain's actually been shown to regrow and heal itself over time. When I learned that, dude, and I knew that there was a way to heal and live again, I was like, drop everything. Everybody needs to know about this, especially how my buddy's getting out. And so that the part in the film where we talk about that, we talk about the research and the science behind this, is for us was the most crucial part. Yeah, we went around Cape Horn. Cape Horn was was the only way we thought that we'd get people to pay attention to what we were talking about. We thought if we went and sailed in a boat and talked about our feelings and suicide, nobody would want to pay attention. So we were like, all right, I guess we got to do something super bad and live to tell the tale. So we talked about all this and amongst sailing around Cape Horn.
So, how did this whole thing develop? Did you have a boat in mind already? Like, where did you find the funds for it? I mean, did you think you were totally crazy for doing this? Like, what happened next?
Yeah. Oh man. All right, we'll start unpacking that slowly. Let's figure out where to start. I guess we could start with the boat. No, everybody that I talked to about doing this said I was crazy and I'd never do it. And that was a big learning curve starting this thing. It was like everybody that was closest to you shot you down, didn't believe in you. So I got to the point where I didn't talk to anybody about it. I honestly, a lot of my family didn't know I was going to do it. Especially a lot of my friends didn't know. Just got tired of hearing you can't do it. You're going to die. It's like, all right, whatever. So I just didn't tell anybody, and was working on this boat and set sail for Cape Horn and did it, man. Just and the reason I think we chose sailing, we kind of talked about was we were going to be on a boat talking about our feelings and PTSD, and nobody was going to pay attention to that unless we sailed something bad in this world. And that was Cape Horn. Cape Horn is the deadliest waters in this world. So we decided that Cape Horn would be the reason people would want to watch our film. And then amongst that, we would talk about PTSD and how it affects the body. And we also chose sailing, dude, because sailing is honestly, and I can say it now, has saved my life. So I was working as a captain when all this was going on and being on the water, I felt alive. And when we were kind of thinking about it, I was like, it's the only real place that I want to keep living. I want to see this every day. And then on that trip, dude, was a light switch for my life. You see the most beautiful things in this world. Like, for instance, one night we were sailing into Belize and there wasn't an ounce of wind and we were kind of just coasting, and the water was like glass, like a mirror. So there wasn't a cloud in the sky either. And so you could see the stars reflecting on the water like a mirror. And then these dolphins were jumping around the boat and there was a bunch of bioluminescence in the water. So the dolphins would jump and it was like stardust behind them. And it was like we were sailing through space because you couldn't see a horizon. There was stars beneath you and above you. And these dolphins were just jumping through space. It was something straight out of Life of Pi, dude. And that was my first experience. I was like, oh my God, this world is freaking beautiful, dude. This world's awesome. I've never seen anything that gorgeous, peaceful before in my life. And then the rest of the trip, it was hard, and that's not to take away from it. Like, if there was a hurricane, we found it. We sailed through all of them. We actually sailed through the first hurricane to hit the coast of Chile, the first ever recorded hurricane. It was called an anticyclone down there. It was a category 1, so it wasn't too bad, but it was still bad. But we had a whole lot of trouble. But there was moments on that trip where you just felt alive and a part of this world. Everywhere we went, and especially in Patagonia, man. Patagonia is just untouched by people. So you're anchoring between glaciers, millions of years old, that have been down there, and you just hear them rumbling. You feel it in your chest. It's a wild experience, and we wanted to share that with people, especially my buddies getting out, that there's a reason to live again. That this world isn't just death and disgusting dark. It's actually there's beautiful parts in this world. You just have to go there. You have to go find it. It's not going to be in your couch in your living room. And that's given me a reason to live. That's what we do now that the film's done, is we bring veterans and show them those experiences and show them that this world is worth living in again. We chose sailing to do that because, as you know, sailing, it makes you feel different, dude. It makes you feel a part of the world.
Yeah. What I love about sailing, one of the many things, is that it connects you so much to your intent. It's not like, living at home right now, you can get up. It doesn't really matter if you get up at 7 or 8 or, 8:30, unless you have small kids, which I think, I know you do.
Yeah, I've got a 2-year-old. I'm waiting for her to run out here and yell at me.
Yeah. Like working on something, doesn't matter if you put the screwdriver here or there. It's like, it's just there. But like with the sailing, you have to be intentful about everything. And like every little piece has to have its place. You have to get up in the morning, or you could die if you don't check the weather and make the right decisions, or things will just get really uncomfortable. So in many ways, it makes you extremely, for me, it has made me, and I have still a ways to go, but it made me a better man, and it made me help me connect with my strength, and help me face challenges, because you have no choice. It's like face challenges or just face the consequences. Well, I'll face the challenges. So, I don't want to spoil too much for everybody. By the way, everybody listening to this and watching it, please check out www.hellerhighseas.com. Just watch the movie. It's an incredible documentary. You're going to love it. It's well worth watching and investing your time in. You're going to have the whole story there, but obviously it wasn't all bed and roses. Let's talk about, the challenging points, and like paint us a picture of like the whole journey for those listening. Like, so you started, I believe, in Houston, right? Or Florida?
Yeah, we started in Florida. It was right when Hurricane Harvey was hitting our coast, and we were like, well, this is probably going to be our window. It's the biggest storm to hit us in 100 years. So we'll ride the back end of that. It'll be smooth sailing all the way to Mexico. Well, we did set sail, but Harvey came back out again, which nobody saw coming. We sure didn't predict that. So right off the bat, we got hit by the worst hurricane that's hit us in about 100 years. We thought we were going to die. Then, our experience wasn't there. It was a rough one. One of my buddies that I deployed with, he's still active duty, Kellen. He came out with us to sail across the Gulf of Mexico, and it was a fight, dude. It was a fight. 8 days it took us to get out, and I don't know, it was hard. I think for me that was probably the hardest one, just because of our lack of experience. It was scary too. I thought I'd killed Steven and Kellen. These guys came with me to sail, and it was my fault that they died. That was pretty rough to go through. And then we hit storms all the way down, dude. We hit two more tropical storms going down. And then we hit one depression off of Roatan and flooded the whole island. That was wild. But the coolest disaster that happened to us was when we were going through the Panama Canal. Our transmission blew up halfway through the Panama Canal, and that didn't make it in the film. So when you watch the film, this is what's really going on. So about halfway, we got through the first set of locks, and then halfway through, transmission's out. Boom, done. Like, we can't even turn the engine over, anything, locked up. So we're calling on the radio, and these guys that are you have these advisors on board, and they're telling us, you got to, pull over. We're going to get a tug to pull you back to the other side and you're gonna have to pay and go through again, which it cost us like $2,700 to go through the canal. And dude, that would have been the end of our expedition right there, because we didn't have any money. We actually worked down there in Panama as linemen on boats. That's how we saved up money to go through the canal. People would hire us to work their lines on their boat and feed us, which was awesome. So we saved up all this money for a couple months down there, and we're going through, transmission's done, and they're telling us we got to go back. We're gonna have to pay again. I'm like, well, we're gonna have to go home now. The day before, we saw this other big sailboat with a big crew. They had red polos on, 72 feet. I was like, well, we knew they were from the UK, right? And so there was a real discussion on the boat, and we're like, are we gonna call the British to help us tow us the rest of the way? And we're like, yeah, it's time to suck the pride a little bit. So we got on the radio and we're calling them. We're like, hey, do you guys mind giving us a tow the rest of the way? And they're like, yeah, sure, we'll be right there. They were like 30 minutes behind us, and they pull up, and we have our Mission 22 flag. It's an organization here in the States that brings awareness to veteran suicides. So that flag was flying from our mast, and one of the guys was like, before they threw us the lines, they're like, Mission 22. I was like, hell yeah, man. And we tie off next to them. I'm like, what are you guys doing out here? And they're like, we're all active duty Army in England, in the UK. I was like, what the hell? They're like, yeah, we're all from the same unit. We're all still active duty. We just got back from deployment. We go on these expeditions. We send a third of our unit at a time to go on an adventure therapy expedition. Said, some of our guys get shot and blown up, and we want to make sure that everybody comes home is also mentally stable whenever they're back. I was like, are you freaking kidding me, dude? Are you serious? And he was like, yeah, I'm not messing with you. We do this. We want to make sure all our guys are taken care of. I was like, I was pissed. I was angry, man. I was like, these programs exist. Militaries actually take care of their guys when they come back. Blew my freaking mind. And that set the course for everything else we do now. We don't do anything new. We model their program. So when you come back, or the UK specifically, their unit, they can go sailing, they can go hiking or camping. They can choose their program, but they have to go decompress out in the wilderness somewhere, which I think is incredible, dude. Then obviously we dove into all kinds of adventure therapy research, which Israel has a bunch out. It's really good. They're all on our website if anybody wants to see that too, by the way. But Yeah, that was the greatest disaster that happened. Our boat was shot. We couldn't go anywhere. And then we get saved by a bunch of active duty guys on an adventure therapy program in the middle of the world of all the times, dude. I'll never be able to describe that. It's wild. All the boats and all of the seas at that one moment was just crazy. So, after that, they took us through the canal. I still talk to those guys today, and then sailed to Ecuador. We sailed to Chile. We had to skip Peru because sailing into Peru was way too expensive for us. It was going to cost us around $3,000 in fees to check into the country. Right? We didn't have that money, so we sailed straight to Chile, which took us 33 days. And our boat caught fire on that one, started sinking. Our engine quit on us then too, so we sailed the whole way. Even when we lost wind, we were out there just rocking. That was the scary part, was in your big calm, that sea. And I'll say that I know I'm on a rant right now, but I want to make this clear. When you're sailing, I think the scariest part is when you're stuck and there's no wind. I would take any big storm we went through over being the calm at sea, because you watch your rations drain and you don't know when you're going to be able to get out of it. It's rough. But yeah. And then, like I said, we got hit by an anticyclone sailing into Chile. That was fun. And then we got there, and I don't want to give too many spoilers away because the fun part starts happening now. We'll leave that for the film, but yeah, the seas get bigger and the winds get a lot stronger the further south we go.
Amazing. I mean, I get so excited talking with you about this because I just feel like I'm there, and I know what that feels like when, like the main message of Sail the Stars is follow your dreams, do what you love, and just watch what happens. And this has been my life now for about a year, ever since I started this project. And hearing your story, it's just like I'm hearing the reflection of that. There you had a dream, or you had a calling in your heart, and you did it. And yeah, it was challenging. Yeah, and everybody thought, or told everybody you love told you, yeah, you might die. This is stupid. Don't do it. But you did it anyway, and trusted yourself. And even in those dire moments, like there's always this saving grace, right? And by the way, it's funny to hear that people told you might die, like as if that would stop you, since you kind of like we're over that, right? You were willing to die to get out of pain. It's like, and I think so many people in life, we have these two choices. Like, do we keep suffering? Do we keep our old story alive? Or do we do this thing that's inkling in our hearts, that's tugging us to go somewhere, to do something great? And most people choose the prior, but to have the audacity and the courage to go. This is amazing. So I really applaud you for that, and to see how many lives this has touched and how beautiful a story it is, and to see that serendipity come in those moments, because it's like whenever we kind of like fall short on our dreams, it's usually because we start to listen to our heads. We're like, oh, that will never work out, or we won't get any help. Like it's kind of like the equivalent of knowing your engine's already broken, like who's going to come help us? But like something always comes along, and trusting that. So it's just really amazing to hear that part of your story. And then it must have been really tough for you when you were like you said, in the middle of dealing with the psychological pressure of the challenges. Tell me about that. Like, how did you deal with those extremely tough times when you were out at sea and you're like, shit, I shouldn't have done this?
There were a lot of those moments. We'd have a lot of those conversations. So the little one was upset that wasn't playing with her, so she came to join us.
What's her name?
Aurora, after the Aurora Borealis.
Hello, Aurora.
Yeah. So she just got this cape she's in love with. But dude, probably every couple days we questioned what we were doing, man. I think it's kind of cool the way you said it. There's definitely a thing. I don't know. I still can't describe it to this day, but there's definitely a thing I think that happens. Like when in your core that you have to do something, that you're supposed to be doing something, like the world does not help you at all. You don't get an ounce of help. But whenever you start doing this thing and you're out in the world, just putting it out there, dude, the world comes around you, just like the British Army guys coming to save us, man. For some reason or another, when you start doing what you're meant to do, what you know in your core you're supposed to do, the world comes around you. It's wild. We had a lot of those experiences where we should not have made it out alive. We shouldn't have been able to keep on going, but we did, and I can't explain them. You call it luck or whatever. I really do believe that is just, there's something in this world that helps you whenever you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. And I rely on that a lot. I think it's really cool. So whenever you get that feeling where you know you're supposed to be doing something in this world and everybody says you're crazy, you just got to do it, man. It'll work out. You know, sometimes like us, it took us almost 3 years, but it'll work out eventually. You just got to keep on going. It's like a little bit every day. Like, and then to your question, you know, it's just, there's a lot of days when you don't want to keep going forward. You're in a storm. You've been fighting a storm for 4 or 5 days and you haven't slept at all. Some days I would force myself to just to do a little thing, like inspect one piece of rigging, you know, a day, just to keep going forward, or fix one thing. Compounded over time, you know, you get done what you need to get done. And that's kind of what I relied on out there. But yeah, it was tough, man. And there's no way. I don't really have any advice for anybody about it. You just it's hard. It's always going to be really, really hard. Things are going to try and kill you all the time. I think the best, if I were to give anybody advice about it, is you just embrace it. So there's a thing that we did in the military, like when we were super freaking cold and you couldn't feel our hands, and you're sitting there and you're wondering if your toes are black from frostbite. And you're like, I don't know if I have toes anymore. I don't know. I'm probably going to come back to base. My toes are gone. I'm going to have to get them cut off. And you can't feel anything anymore. It's just miserable. You still have to do your job. We'd get to the point where you just like, you look at the person next to you and you're like, good. I don't need my toes. I'm glad. I'm super happy. I'm cold right now. And that we did that a lot on the expedition. It kind of changes your mentality instantly. So specifically, I remember this one time I was coming off watch and John was below deck, and we were both just had all of our pieces of clothing on, and our cushion. The boat was linking and sinking at this point, and there's so much water below. All our cushions were frozen solid. So I was coming down. I'm like, man, I'm freaking tired. I don't want to go lay down in this ice. You know, this sucks. Got ice in my beard, freezing. I got to go lay on an ice cube and try and get some sleep. And John's just sitting there laughing at me. And he's like, yeah, it's terrible. And I was like, you know what? Good. I'm freaking glad that my bed is frozen solid right now. I'm going to enjoy it. And I just jumped onto it and it cracked and water came all the way up around me and through the cushions, you know. And I was like, I slept like a baby, dude. I slept like a freaking baby because I was like, I'm happy. I'm glad this is happening. That helped mentality a lot on the boat when we were in those really bad situations. You just have to say good and embrace it. You know, your boat's on fire. Great. I was hoping my boat would catch on fire. You know, that's awesome.
I love it, man. I love it. I think there's two types of people probably listening to this right now. First type of person listening, and at least in the context of crazy sailing with, you know, a really tiny boat, probably not designed to do what you made it do.
No. Yeah,
but people
shouldn't have brought that boat.
Yeah, probably like two types of people listening to this, like people thinking, wow, that's totally crazy and nuts and sounds scary as shit. And I would never do that. And the other type of person, which is like me, like, that sounds amazing. Good. because of adventure therapy, because of what it means to my heart and to my soul, because I love challenging myself. And that's one of the aspects of what's calling me to our mission, is to embrace challenge. And to one of my great friends told me that one of the things that is like a marker of what makes a boy a man is the capacity to deal with enormous amounts of pain, to actually feel pain and continue living. And we don't really get the luxury of those initiations anymore. So it's like life, you kind of have to make it happen yourself, or life will just serve you that initiation eventually. And I feel like from your story, it's like you had it come to you in the form of PTSD from the Navy, and you just like alchemized it into this beautiful thing, you know. And it could have gone the other way, but by the grace of God and all that is, you know, there you were. So it's just freaking remarkable. I absolutely love it.
I was going to say on that point, I mean, you brought it up earlier. It's just whenever you said you sail, it kind of lets you know what your strengths are. And I think for you, just like us, I think, you know, the sea does that. And I think that's why the sailing community is so incredible, because it beats you down. You know, anybody that sails has gotten their ass whooped by the sea a couple of times. It lets you know real quick who you are and what you're good at in this world. And it lets you know what you want to do in this world. You figure it out there. I think that's a good way to put it. It's a good initiation for us. We found that. We just got to do it. So now we just got to bring out, maybe that's a requirement. When people finish school, they have to go sail, figure out who they are. If you make it back alive, you deserve to stay. I'm just
exactly. Well, tell me more about the adventure therapy and the research, because I haven't done research in that area. I have been involved a fair deal in my life around trauma and healing my own trauma through various ways. I'm very curious to hear about what that's done for your condition and for others that you know of, especially in Mission 22. These guys you connected to down there in Panama, right in the middle of the canal.
So adventure therapy, instead of prescribing pills, you prescribe an adventure. So hiking, sailing, whatever you want to do. They even have fly fish, like fishing ones. There's a really cool one here in the States where they go ride horses for 30 days through the mountains here, which is, I think, is awesome. They take a group of veterans and go do that. But the thing with adventure therapy is, instead of being an environment where your adrenaline's running and cortisol is being released in your body, your adrenaline's running and endorphins are being released in your body. So when you're in an environment where your adrenaline's running and it's super negative, right? It's like you got to put your hands on somebody who's died or try and help someone. That memory is burned into your brain, right? So if you put a bunch of guys that have those memories in and you get their adrenaline running in the most beautiful environment in the world, that memory is just as equally as strong in your mind, and you'll always be able to fall back on it. And then with your endorphins running, endorphins have been shown to regrow parts of the hippocampus over time, especially when your adrenaline's going. So, adventure therapy just heals your body, heals your mind. And the other component to that is you get guys out. We take 6 to 8 guys out and women out at a time, and you can talk. Most of the time on these trips, I don't talk at all. It's all these guys like going through this right now. Nothing's forced. It's just it's usually a lot of shit talking to each other first, and then you talk about what's going on in your life. It kind of naturally goes that way, and then other people are like, "Dude, I'm going through the same thing right now. Like I've had that same thing happen to me." And then you're not alone. Now you've got this community where you're not the only one living in this pain anymore. So you build a community and you heal your mind at the same time. That's what adventure therapy is, and that's what we do now. It kind of takes up all of our time, getting guys out and talking about this. We also talk about the film a lot, to go to different communities and talk about how adventure therapy helps in the programs that are out there. Yeah, it's pretty, the concept's simple. You're not using medicine, you're using nature to kind of heal the body, which people have been doing since the beginning of time. The first written book, Odysseus the Odyssey was a big inspiration for us, because the Odyssey was written about Odysseus going to war for 10 years. And then it took him 10 years to sail home. It took him that long to kind of get over the war. So it's not new, people have been talking about adventure therapy and healing the body over time in nature after going through a war for centuries. We're just bringing it back, dude. The revival.
Awesome. Where can people learn more about the American Odysseus Sailing Foundation and your programs? And what are you up to right now with that whole side of things?
People can go to amodsailing.org, amodsailing.org. That's got all of the research on there. We've got a tab on there with referencing our favorite research articles, and it talks about what we do in our sailing programs. And then if you want to watch the film, you can go to hellerhighseas.com. That talks about what we're doing as well. And if anybody watching this is going through what we went through, reach out on either of those platforms. And any of those platforms, man, reach out and we'll either put you in touch with the program or get you out with us.
Awesome. And really quick before we end the interview, last question. Yeah, if anybody's watching right now and they're suffering from trauma or depression or something really difficult, or whether they're thinking about embarking on their dream or their passion, what would be your parting message to them? Something that you'd love to give them from your heart to them?
You don't have to live like that anymore. There's a means to heal and get better. You just have to do it. That's it. That was my biggest thing, was I didn't think that there was a reason to live, that I would ever get better. But you can actually heal. You can heal your body, and you can get better, and you can see how beautiful this world is again. And there's all kinds of resources, and we're all waiting for you to reach out and help you.
Awesome, Taylor. Thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure to talk to you, and so inspiring to see you come out on the other end of this, with your beautiful daughter and the sunshine. So
thank you.
Thanks for being here.
For the distraction.
Thank you so much for watching. If you've enjoyed this episode, then come check out what we're up to at sailtostars.com, We're using NFT art and cryptocurrency to crowdfund a massive sailboat, install satellite internet on it and virtual reality cameras, and then we're inviting epic people from all over the world to come sailing and use the challenge of sailing to co-create art and messages that inspire people to greatness and help co-create the new Earth together. Kind of like TED Talks, except with orcas, dolphins, and tons of celebration of life, and everyone can own a piece of it through NFTs. So if you'd love to be involved, come sign up for our newsletter and join us in a Discord. We'd love to have you aboard. Thank you so much for watching, and see you next time.